Hello everyone, my name is Anna and welcome back to another English Torah video here on the channel of Jóvenes Peregrinando. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing chapters 13 and 14 of Deuteronomy. Today's title is Listen and Feed on the True Instruction. In these chapters, we will see that the people of Israel should observe very carefully what Moshe was going to tell them regarding to the choices that they were going to make in the future. So in that way, their choices can be made correctly and not incorrectly. In chapter 13 of Deuteronomy, we will see that Moshe tells the people of Israel the importance of listening to the Creator so that in that way they can be nourished by the true instruction. And this was very important because we will see that the Father warned the people of Israel that there were going to be people that lived within their community that were going to arise saying that the Father had spoken to them. And this was obviously not true because just as we have already studied before, the Eternal only spoke to Moshe and Aaron, who was the high priest. And the Eternal we're going to be reading how the Eternal allowed all of this to happen because he was going to test the people of Israel if they were faithful to him or not. For this reason, it is why Moshe tells them what they should do with the people who were stumbling blocks for them. In chapter 14, we will see that Moshe repeats once again about kosher and non-kosher animals, what characteristics they must have in order for them to be eaten, and what was the kosher diet too. Another thing that we're going to be seeing lastly is that Moshe talks about in chapter 14 about the tzedakah that could be given between the people of Israel, how it had to be given which was with just and sincerity. With this short introduction, let's start reading Deuteronomy 13 verses 1 to 3 that say, "If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or wonder that he tells you comes to pass, and if he says, 'Let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them,' you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For the Eternal your Elohim is testing you to know whether you love the Almighty with all your heart and soul." Here we can read that if among the Israelites someone stood up saying that they had a message from the Eternal, that they had a vision from the Eternal, that they had performed wonders and miracles among the people of Israel, or even if they directed or influenced the people of Israel to serve other gods of the nations, then the Israelites could not listen to or even follow that person, no matter if it was their own brother, their own sister, their dad, their mom, or a close relative. This was because the Creator would be testing them to see what was in their hearts, if they truly loved and feared the Eternal, or on the contrary, if they were just there for a benefit. The person who was this stumbling block for the people of Israel and tried to separate and divert the people of Israel from the Creator, we can read that it was instructed that the people of Israel had to kill that person so that no one would dare to do such an action again. As we know today, this continues to happen within humanity, since we can see that many have arisen who call themselves prophets, miracle workers, or even dreamers. And although, yes, there have been some cases where a declaration of such person has been fulfilled, however, we must always ask ourselves, where are these statements of these people guiding us to? If that statement guides us to obedience or holiness, but more importantly to our Messiah Yeshua, or if it guides us to deviation and it separates us from the true path. So here we can realize the importance of the people of Israel being educated about What would happen if a person rose up to deceive them from the path and lead them into idolatry, assimilation, or rebellion against their Creator? But not only was it important for the people of Israel to know about this, but also nowadays us. It is of utmost importance that as believers we do what it says in Jacob's letter, where he tells us to test the spirits, in order to see if they are from Elohim or not. An example that we can use and learn from is the Messiah, who not only can we read that prophesied but also that performed miracles and healings for the peoples, but also he guided the people. And nowadays he continues to guide us as souls to return to the Creator through him, to obey and serve the Creator. In the teachings of the Messiah, we can read that Yeshua never made a religion or traditions of men that directed us to invalidate the words of the Eternal. But on the contrary, the Messiah, we can read that he told us the importance of returning to the Father and being faithful servants who trust in all time the Eternal Father, never doubting him. Moshe himself tells this to the people of Israel in verse 4. He says, "You shall walk after the Eternal your Elohim and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve and hold fast to him." From verses 12 to 15 it says, "If you hear in one of your cities which the Eternal your Elohim is giving you to dwell there, that certain worthless fellows have gone out among you and have drawn away the inhabitants of their city, saying, 'Let us go and serve other gods which you have not known,' then you shall inquire and make search and ask diligently. And behold, if it be true and certain that such an abomination has been done among you, you shall surely put the inhabitants of that city to the sword, devoting it to destruction, all who are in it and its cattle, with the edge of the sword." In these verses, we can read that the people of Israel had to put to death the person who decided and who deceived the people of Israel, thinking that the Eternal had spoken to them, and who also caused the people of Israel to fall into idolatry. This was not the first time that the people of Israel had heard about this topic, because as we have previously studied within the Torah, we can find many events of how this instruction was carried out, where the people of Israel had to put to death the other Israelites who spoke falsehoods. The first example that we can use is when the people of Israel asked Aaron to make them gods. They got up early to celebrate the golden calf. They had idolatrous rejoicing. But when Moshe returned from the mount where he was speaking with the Creator about the mandates that the Creator was going to give to Moshe from Moshe to give to the people of Israel, Moshe, seeing their sin, this idolatry that they were doing, Moshe made also the people of Israel see their sin. But still, we can read that because of the rebellion of the people of Israel, they wanted to continue with this idolatry. And for this reason, it is why Moshe orders the death of anyone who was not on the side of the Eternal. And this instruction that Moshe gave regarding to the death of these people, the Levites were the ones who had to carry out this instruction, even wounding their own brothers. The scripture says that about 3,000 men had died that day. And although this action does seem very strong, let's remember that the Eternal wanted to assure that the evil was nipped in the bud so that the people would not repeat this abomination again. Another example is when Pinchas killed the Midianite woman and the Israelite man who were inciting the people of Israel to commit fornication and go after pagan deities. For this reason, it is why we can read that the Eternal made a perpetual pact with Pinchas, because the father saw the zeal that Pinchas had for the Creator. In all of this, we can understand that the Eternal hates impiety and is not pleased with those who go astray and cause others to stumble. In Mark 9, verse 42 to 45, we can read that Yeshua teaches about the people who are stumbling blocks. He says, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. And if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life crippled than with 2 hands to go to hell. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter the life lame than with 2 feet to be thrown into hell." Continuing with chapter 14, verses 1 through 2, it says, "You are the sons of the Eternal, your Elohim. You shall not cut yourselves or make any baldness on your foreheads for the dead. For you are a people holy to the Eternal, your Elohim, and the Eternal has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the people in the earth." This instruction that we read in these verses is related to practices that were dedicated to the dead, something that was presented not only in the Canaanite nations that surrounded them in that time, but also with other nations that surrounded them throughout the history of the Israelite people. For example, the priests of Babylon, who were represented in the temples with their robes torn, their hair and beard shaved, and their head uncovered. Also, we can see it in the prophets of Baal, where we can read in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 28, that those prophets cried out loudly and cut themselves with knives and lancets until they dripped blood, and they did all of this according to their custom. Finally, we can also see it within the Egyptian priests, who had to purify themselves before coming into contact with divinity. And to do this, it was necessary for them to shave all their hair body, because it was considered impure. So by all these customs that were seen within the nations that surrounded the people of Israel, we can realize and understand why is it that the Eternal forbids the Israelites to practice those customs. Like always, the Eternal just wanted good for his people. He didn't want to make them suffer or make them feel bad. The Eternal just wanted to protect them from all the assimilation that was outside in the other pagan nations. Currently, we can understand that the hair gives coverage to the head, no longer referring it to a physical coverage, but more than a coverage of our thoughts, which must be covered by the coverage of the Messiah and his instruction. Now, shaving our heads for hygienic reasons of personal hygiene or health isn't bad. What is bad is idolizing people and imitating and assimilating with certain cuts or trends. And this is what we can see and understand from verses 1 and 2 of this chapter 14. From verses 3 to 21, it reminds the people of Israel about the laws regarding to the foods or the animals that were allowed to eat and the ones that were not allowed to eat. For more information about the kosher diet, what animals are kosher and what animals are non-kosher, I would recommend you to listen to the video titled "A Diet and Habits for the Believer," which is based on Leviticus 11 and 12, which you can find in this channel of Jóvenes Peregrinando in the playlist called Leviticus. As we have already studied, this topic is very important in our lives, especially in our diet, And that's the reason why the Creator since the beginning has left it for us, for it to be a healthy consumption. And it is important to understand that these laws go beyond the popular belief of eating everything that moves, runs, or flies as long as it lives, a belief supported by the texts and passages that have been misunderstood. And therefore, they have been used to invalidate these laws in the Messiah, who did not come to invalidate these laws, but to fulfill them. And we can see this in the life of the Messiah and his teachings. From verses 22 to 29, it talks about the laws regarding the tithes, which we have already studied in Leviticus 27, and there is also a video for that titled "Our Commitment is to the Call of the Father," which I also recommend you to listen to for more information. Within the time of the people of Israel, it was ordered to them to give a tenth part of their goods, which evidently did not consist of coins or riches. On the contrary, they consisted of materials obtained from what they had earned in agriculture, and which they did that on the daily. All of these livestock were taken to a place and a specific time designed by the Creator, with the purpose of hearing Him and obtaining the basic sustenance of the true Levites in their times. Today, nowadays, all this has changed due to the fact that we no longer live in those times, but now we are more modernized, which means that people's working lifestyles have changed. In most cases of the people, they no longer work in these agriculture activities, but in other things. In addition, there are no longer physical Levites nor a specific earthly place to apply the tithes as ordered in its time. But unfortunately, people fall into the error of giving this help, this tzedakah, according to their religion, and due to this, it is why their money are used to make their leaders even more richer. They give their money to those who already have what they need and who don't need anymore. In the religions, we can see that the people's money are not being used to help those who are actually in need, which was the original purpose of the tzedakah that the people of Israel were going to give to their neighbors, their brothers, their family, and therefore this was so that there wasn't no poverty, or that there wouldn't exist poverty among the people of Israel. Now, this doesn't mean that the tzedakah is abolished, but the principle is to give, doing it in the right way and to the right people, always fearing the Creator before anything else and using it for His service, for example, for the festivities. And with those who truly need it also, like for example the poor, the orphans, the widows, the sick, etc. So with this, we can understand that whenever we want to give tzedakah to a person, we have to do it with fear towards the eternal and doing it the correct way and to the correct people, never taking advantage of those people, and also those people never taking advantage of the person that's giving them tzedakah. And well, this is all for today's video. Thank you very much for your time, and we will see each other in the next one.